We will start with talking about the transport infrastructure innovations and future developments in that particular area. For that purpose, we will have a panel discussion with two very interesting guests. Number one is the chairman of the Supervisory Board of Auve. His name is Taavi Rõivas, and there will also be the founder of the Center of Digital Logistics. His name is Heiti. Please give a round of applause and welcome the gentleman on stage. Before you get the chance to talk more about what you do, we have a small introductory video about the two companies, so let's take a look.
Auve has developed self-driving vehicles and autonomous transportation systems, which are incredibly unique and innovative. The world's most compact and flexible Level 4 autonomous shuttle that suits the existing infrastructure and operates on public roads already today. Auve's solution is to provide autonomous last mile for extension of public transport and fundamentally change the way people commute in urban environment. Shuttles are powered by electricity and hydrogen. Digital Logistics Center of Excellence is a competence center for digital supply chain. They apply their experiences for developing paperless transport solutions and data exchange platform as open digital infrastructure for logistics. It is based on international standards and made for cargo senders, purchasers, intermodal carriers, and public authorities. Digital Logistics Center of Excellence mission is to make freight and supply chains paperless. Let's hear their ideas about the transport, infrastructure innovations, and future developments.
The lovely gentleman from the introductory video is right. Let's hear their ideas. Taavi, perhaps you want to start and tell us more about what Auve does.
Well, thank you very much for this very kind introduction indeed. Well, first of all, the context. It's quite obvious that already today the trend of having ever more personal vehicles is a road to nowhere, because if we look at the congestions already in the major cities in US, in Europe, we understand that there has to be some alternative for commuting. And globally, if the developing world would reach the same levels of personal vehicles as we have here in Europe or in the United States, we would need 3 or 4 or even 5 times more vehicles. So the planet simply wouldn't sustain that. Now, we have found that the biggest obstacle why people are not using public transport more is that public transport is not taking you where you want to go, but it is actually taking you to the bus stop where the city planners plan the bus stop. Our technical solution is autonomous driving, but our business solution is basically extension of public network or public transport network, and thus solving the kind of very serious problem of ever-increasing number of personal vehicles. There are some markets where the legislators are very eager to introduce autonomous vehicles. Singapore, Japan, I would also say most of Europe, US. There are some regions where there is a lot of curiosity, Middle East being definitely one of them. We will send our first vehicles to Middle East very, very soon. And we see that already today, autonomous driving in some use cases is fully possible. So we're not pursuing for some sort of distant moonshot for like 2050. We are actually innovating where it can already deliver results. And so far, our vehicles have been driving in 12 countries, so far only Europe, but we see that there is increasing demand also in US, Middle East, Japan, Singapore, and so forth. And yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge, of course, is to get the price of the vehicle to be competitive with other forms of last mile mobility. But we see that this is something that is definitely happening when we scale. Also, one of our key innovations is to increase the autonomy to this extent that the human supervision or human surveillance can be taken to minimum. In practical terms, this means that we are aiming for one human being to be able to supervise up to 10 vehicles from a distance. Taking human fully out of the equation is going to happen probably as well, but not in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years. We see that in all forms of automation of mobility, the legislators and also the technology developers still wish to see at least some human involvement. So the idea is to get to one person supervising up to 10 vehicles, and then it will also be economically much more attractive than just 10 guys with 10 minivans. And yeah, that's the innovation we are providing. I'm glad to say that some of you got the chance to take a ride yourself to the dinner yesterday. I saw it was quite popular indeed, but also those of you who haven't had a chance to be introduced to our autonomous vehicle, one of the vehicles is parked just in front of the entrance. Please come and have a look, and there are people who will show you how the vehicle operates and how it sees the environment and so forth. Thank you very much.
Very well. Yes, you can take a look. I mean, of course, after these lovely discussions here, don't run away right now. But perhaps afterwards, you can take a look at the bus that you will see outside. Heiti, can you tell us more about what the Center of Digital Logistics does?
Yeah, hello. Before I'm going to the innovation regarding transportation of goods. Because the digitalization of logistics is quite a big challenge, and as logistics is everywhere around us, I would like to remind that we are like changing business area which is actually exist today. So logistics is everywhere and goods are moving. So when European Union was made in 90s, then all those rules was the same. And today we are also playing by the rules which has been actually developed in 60s. So it's quite old, and at that time all those processes was based on papers. And even we have today for example, for the road transportation, this kind of ECMR, it is standardized by the United Nations. The standard has been also developed in 2011. So long time ago, and today we know so much more. The standard, it doesn't include many components that we must have today, because like, for example, GPS coordinates, timestamps, which is like extremely important when we would like to get rid of those papers to be sure that the data is actually correct. So many technologies has been developed by that time. And this is, I think, the main reason why European Commission has been developed new law, new regulation for the transportation of goods, the EFDI regulation, which has been taken into the 2020, and it will be mandatory for all member states by 25, which is basically tomorrow. And today we are also participating in the development of those acts which must show how to do it, because it has been said that countries, all member states must do, but what and how, this is where we are also participating at the moment. We will try to be in middle of between states and private sector, because we believe that this is the right way to do, include all public and private services, and to keep also the companies' privacy, keep the companies' rights to handle the data by themselves. And we are also trying to build this kind of layer that will connect all the data. It needs to be secured, of course, but also technology-free. So all companies can decide what they are using, what kind of systems, what kind of services, but still it should be based on standards. We have to develop those standards, which is not there yet. And yeah, this is the way for beginning. as elephant need to be eaten piece by piece. We have decided that we will try to build up this kind of digital transport corridor from Scandinavia to Central Europe, and we have in that sense onboarded many countries like Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Germany, France. So I think at the moment this kind of agreement to build such kind of way is already existing. And yeah, this is what we are doing, and of course it's not about only road transportation. We are talking about air cargo, railway, and big freight in ocean. So the EFDI should connect all those transport modes. It should be like single window, all the data through the one channel.
I guess this is something that most people are not really thinking about on a daily basis, so this is very valuable insight for me personally as well. Perhaps we can take some time to discuss a couple of questions that came up in my head when I was listening to what you've been saying. Taavi, if we start with you, you mentioned that the buses are outside as well, and that it has been quite interesting for the people. So how do humans interact with your approach to mobility? Is it open-mindedness? Are some people a bit concerned or skeptical? How do people feel about it? And both as private citizens, but also as regulators, because at the end of the day, we're all people. So, like, how is the interaction going?
Well, just like you have the challenge of uniting Europe in a way digitally, we have a little bit of the same challenges, because in theory we should have like one legislation, but in practice we have like pretty much 27 legal environments for autonomous driving as well. But thankfully most of these environments are quite like enabling. So okay, we need to struggle with some additional bureaucracy, but that's still kind of minor thing, and we see that for this slow-moving, and this slow-moving autonomous is actually the key. Last mile, slow speeds, like up to 25 kilometers an hour, it's exponentially less dangerous, so this is something that is possible to allow already now. And of course it's safer than human driver, that goes without saying, and this is something we kind of aim for always from technology. Now regarding people, I think the best word to describe is curious. If you sit in our vehicle, you see that there is no wheel, there is no brake pedals, and the car moves, stops, steers, does everything without human interference. So curiousness is the first thing, but also in like real life use cases where we have done commercial pilots and POCs, we see that a lot of people just take a ride because it's a practical thing to do. So for example, in Tallinn, we have had in several city districts projects together with city government, and the same in Tartu, and people take a ride not because they see it's like something cool to do, but because they actually want to take a ride and get from A to B.
This is a completely detour from the topic here. I remember very well the first e-residency cards that were handed out in Estonia, and the first journalists and so on, they just looked at the card and said, awesome, you know, like, I don't know what I'm doing with it, but cool. And then all of a sudden you build these use cases and people are realizing, oh, this is actually applicable for my everyday life, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I mean, what started as like science project several years ago, now we have found a lot of practical use cases, not only extension of public transport, but also enabling transportation in areas like open-air museums, resorts, business districts, and ultimately the goal is the same. You don't need polluting personal vehicles. You can use these last-mile shuttles that can take you from A to B.
Perhaps just one last question on the topic. We've heard that it was both hydrogen and electric power. There are different options. What is the current uptake sort of the two options, and where do you see the development going?
Well, most of our fleet is currently battery electric still, because it's easier to build. But thanks to the cooperation with University of Tartu, we do have the first ever autonomous vehicle in the world that runs on hydrogen as well. And again, this started also like a science project out of curiosity, what we can do and what we cannot do. But now we see that the practical use case for hydrogen is when we want to keep the vehicle going from early morning until late evening without the charging pauses. So there are some use cases where the duration of the operation is very important, and thus we see that what started as a science project will have a real-life business use case quite probably. And also hydrogen is very, very good option in very hot climates where the air conditioner needs to be very powerful, and if we only use battery, it tends to drain the battery quite quickly. So again, hydrogen is actually surprisingly good alternative.
Very interesting. Heiti, you mentioned, of course, that at the end of the day you will have to help also the regulators, but also companies change their business models, their behavioral thinking. Do they actually change their thinking? What's the motive behind all of that for them?
Yeah, we have changed the mindset, which is like for beginning. We have made a few test cases with neighbor countries. So we actually sent some trucks over the borders and in Latvia-Lithuanian border guards and customs people was able to see remotely what is there, so they don't need to stop those trucks anymore. So basically, we all want that actually this kind of borderless transportation will happen. It needs some kind of internal or changes the law in different countries as well. But we have those test cases already. There are some cases in other countries in Europe as well. So yes, we are like moving in that direction.
So what's the driving factor for them? Is it convenience? Is it financial savings? You know, where do they?
I would say that today there are rules. So like what with the trucks must be those shipments documentation. And quite often they must be on paper. But actually, companies doesn't need them anymore so much. We don't have borders in European Union anymore. So the bureaucracy has been staying like it was like in 80s or 60s. So we have to change it. Yes, private sector has been solved partly this process, so this kind of transportation ordering goods is quite often already digitalized. There are services for those, but still state, like public side must come into that play as an equal part, and they also must get what they want, because then we can build invisible public services and police or customs doesn't need to bother those companies who are like doing everything right.
It seems that you have your hands full with getting all of Europe organized along the same lines. Is there any thought of looking further abroad, or do you feel like there's a lot of work to be done in Europe still?
Well, we are moving as fast we can. Because
as you should.
Yeah, we can't change the law by ourselves, but I see that day by day things are moving faster. Estonia has trying to be as a forerunner in that sense, and we really hope that all other member states will come with us, stay with us, and only together we can change the world, because movements of goods doesn't need any borders, because there are like owner of the goods, transportation company, origin, destination, and it can be digitalized, and every who is want or need to check this must do that.
Well, I think both you and the audience are in luck, because we have plenty of policymakers here today, so I don't want to keep you any longer on stage so that you can talk to all of these lovely people and that they can make all these data exchanges across borders, even though they are internal within the European Union, a bit more smooth than they are right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to give a round of applause to Taavi Rõivas and also to Heiti Mering. Thank you so much for being with me on stage, and thank you for the conversation. And yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.